It is very important that you do recognize you have to put yourself first. You have to strip back the barriers and the limitations. You can't just walk into the gym and be one way, right? If you want to succeed in all areas of your life, then you need an attack mentality that you're going to apply across all areas of your life. But as I said, you can't just have this by being stuck in these societal norms. All right, what's up, guys? I'm Andrew Sparks. Thank you again for tuning in. This is podcast number 3. I'm the founder of AS Academy. I'm in the personal leadership space, and I've been doing this in different flavors for going on my 11th year, helping CEOs find another level in personal performance. It really translates into a fulfilling level of success in both business and in life. And for everyone who tuned in last week on YouTube or iTunes, Spotify, any of the other streaming platforms, thank you so much for listening as we get this rolling. And if you're listening to it and you're enjoying it, it would be awesome if you could subscribe, like the video. If you're on YouTube, ring that little bell notification as well that's on YouTube so you know when a new episode is coming up. If you are on iTunes or any of the other streaming platforms, a 5-star review would be awesome, just so more people can hear this information, all right? And so last week we talked about no pain, no gain. If you are not prepared to look hard in the mirror about what is not working, then don't expect to get the results that you want. If you're not 100% honest with yourself, then you will be more stressed than you need to be. You'll be misaligned internally. You'll be frustrated all the time, even straight up pissed off at yourself, and then you'll project that onto other people as well. Okay, and I'll even go down the pathway of saying this creates so much internal conflict for people, it can end up in, depression and other sorts of things as well. All right, I'm going to tackle that one in another podcast at some point, because I think there's a very large spectrum of, what society is calling depression these days as well. But when you can get honest about your needs, okay, when you can actually say not good enough, and then you can say, this is what I want, this is what's broken, this is what needs to be fixed. Then once you can clear away the guilt of what you actually want, clear away the shame of saying what you want. Maybe it's different than what the world wants and society wants, which is a big thing, and a huge amount of the stuff that we're going to talk about here today, as well as future podcasts as well. But once you can get rid of all of that shit, right, then you can start taking action in alignment with the person who you really are, so you can become true to your real identity. Okay, this is very difficult for people in this day and age, and we're going to just strip this stuff back, especially as a business owner. So many rules and challenges and beliefs. But then when you can do this, you really feel at peace with your decisions. You can put your head on the pillow at the end of the day, even if the whole world is against you, but you can say, this is true for me, and that is all that matters, right? Nobody else's opinion matters for you. Unless you have a, significant other, husband, wife, partner, whatever they're called these days, then of course their opinion will matter as well, but it doesn't mean you need to give up you. It means that you need to work through that to figure out what you want, and then have the courage to be able to say it, and then as a partnership, be able to be strong enough to be able to work together to hopefully make sure that everyone's needs are going to be met, because otherwise you end up with dissatisfied partners and all the rest of the stuff that I talked about, okay? In the business sense, if you are misaligned, right, these problems are going to flow out into your business. Business owners end up losing their health, their family, their friends, themselves. They get stuck working 100-hour weeks day in, day out, because they're too scared to say not good enough and too scared to be able to build a life and a company true to them and their values once they understand what those are. Most people, I find it quite interesting when I post some of this stuff on social media from time to time, and the people that, like the stuff about telling the truth, often I know these people and they're not telling the fucking truth to themselves. And so it's like, if people just aren't prepared to do that deep work to look at what they really want, they do those sorts of behaviors even when they don't agree with their messaging. They're just trying to be liked by people. You gotta like yourself. It's got to start with you. What you do in your career, in my opinion, in your business, in my opinion, really has to be aligned with the person that you are, right? If employees are working in a job that isn't right for them, if they're working in jobs and doing roles that isn't right for them as individuals, then they're going to be values misaligned. And so, well, screw it. That's just work. Well, no, it's not. That's where you go 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 hours a week. Okay. And as a business owner, all right, maybe as an employee, you feel boxed in like you don't have an option. Okay. Fair enough. Most of the people listening to this podcast are not going to be employees. But if you're a business owner, well, now you have the opportunity, once you figure out what you want, to be able to shift it. Okay, to be able to make changes to your business, to be able to say not good enough to the shitty customers out there who keep demanding things of you that are outside the values alignment, to be able to say to your team members who aren't doing their jobs properly, who aren't holding the standard that you need within your company, right? Not good enough. Get your shit together or get out. Okay, and these sorts of things are totally okay. I don't care how long people have been with you in the company. I don't care about any of that sort of stuff. If you as a business owner are misaligned, if you're frustrated, if you're challenged, if you've got all this angst within you because you've built this company that's providing, it's putting food on the table, it's paying the bills, but you freaking hate it, you're frustrated by it, then you've got a misaligned business, you're misaligned as a human. And like I said before, you'll project a lot of this frustration both internally and externally. You'll be a very sad person to be around. Okay, we got one shot at this, one opportunity. So let's focus on making it good. And that means making the hard calls. All right. So today I want to talk about an attack mentality, which is really the perfect flow on from what we talked about last week. A huge part of this podcast is going to be about breaking social norms, as I mentioned before. Things, beliefs, structures that exist socially among average people. And when you buy into these things, and we all do on different levels, my objective here is to get you to start to strip those limitations away. Okay? Just because society does something some way, what percentage of society would you say are completely fulfilled and completely successful, right? Or on the pathway to success, right? Success is a bit of a moving target in a lot of aspects. But if we break this down and look at this, like maybe 5% of people actually are honest and true to themselves, are on the pathway to get the things that they want, and actually create the things that they want by saying, I'm not going to put up and believe what society believes. Because as I've talked about before, we get brought up in a school system that isn't supportive of success. It doesn't teach you, when in school, did anyone teach you about putting together budgets for business, how to manage money properly, how to manage your emotions properly, and these sorts of things? Certainly 20 years ago, longer than that now, when I went to school, they weren't teaching that stuff. And I don't think the school system has changed too much, right? And so actually a mate of mine's a school teacher, and I said to him the other day, like, when are people going to, he learned about crypto through his students, all right? And I said, when do you think the school's ever going to start to teach people about crypto? Because, no matter where you are on the scale at the moment, it will be something it already is something, but in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be talked about a lot more, blockchain technology and all that sort of stuff. You can see it being implemented into society as we move forward with the changes that have been happening over the last couple of years as well. Okay, that's just a bit of a side note, right? But the point that I'm trying to make is the school system and society does not bring us up to believe the things that we need to believe to be hyper successful and get the things that we want. So often we have to go and look on podcasts, joining programs and courses and things like this. But from people that have actually taken the time and the money and the energy and books to go and learn and discover this stuff for themselves. Okay? If you're trying to do great things, then you can't be stuck on average societal norms. And this is what we need to unpack. And this is going to be such a major part of this podcast as we move forward. Because if you don't have the courage to step up and say, I'm not going to believe that, I'm not going to toe that line, then you will believe that and you will stay stuck in the box that society norm has you trapped. Okay? So I think a few weeks ago now, I put up a post on social media asking the question, like, who are you really? Right? Who are you really? And I was talking about the way that you approach your training, i.e. physical training in the gym or outside of the gym, whatever sort of training that you do, but talking about that in a sense that the way that you approach your training will expose the person that you really are. If you are the type of person that gets in and works hard and, sweats and like really goes deep, then that really shows the type of person that you are. And I understand that there's, different types of training for different times. Let's not like try and splice these things up right here. Okay. All of the people that want to do that, go somewhere else. The point that I'm trying to make here is that if we look at it in its rawest, when it's time to put in effort, are you going to put in that effort, right? In training, in the gym, doing triathlons, on the bike, whatever your method of training is, it takes courage to dig deep. It takes grit to dig deep. It takes consistency in your fitness to continue to show up. It takes dedication to see it through to the end, right? Think about that hard set. Think about that finisher in the session that needs to be done, right? That is hard work. And if you bury yourselves to the level of capacity that you have at the point in time, and you're honest with yourself about that, then great. If you don't, then there's a gap between your potential and what you're actually putting in. Okay? And having spent probably the better part of the last decade, working with business owners in the fitness industry, like this is a really good example. Most PTs, they only focus on this killer mindset in the gym. So their business suffers, right? Think about this in the form of like a 1 RM, 1 rep max. Okay? If your focus is on a 1 RM in the gym, it's about being all in, isn't it? It's about pushing hard. It's about going to your capacity for 1 rep. How much can you bench? How much can you deadlift? What is that measurement? But in this example, and not just picking on PTs because this is like everywhere, okay? But in this example, if you're a PT and you focus on that in the gym, that's only where you focus it, but then you walk outside the door and then you become a different person, it's no wonder that, you have an Instagram feed full of, people that follow you with results and stuff like that, but then you have a business that sucks because you stopped with that mentality that allowed you to be able to get to the level, that benchmark of that 1 rep max, right? A killer mentality should not be situational, right? Does society embrace an attack mentality, a killer mentality? No, it doesn't. Recently, I was watching a Tom Brady special, studying what he's been doing over his career. Obviously, at this point in time, he's still playing. And he's arguably the greatest NFL quarterback of all time. I don't even think it's an argument, but some people will. But if you go and look at what Tom Brady has been able to do, and if you look at his image, all right, he has an image of poise and an image of, just a really clean image in the spotlight. And he's done a very, very good job of doing that. Do you think that he takes that image onto the field? Of course he doesn't, right? He is hungry. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Even in one of these specials, one of his teammates said, they didn't give this too much airtime, but it said, Tom isn't as kind of as squeaky clean as what you think he is, right? For Tom Brady to be able to get the level of results that he's had to get, he is a savage and he consistently shows up. All right. He's not doing 1 rep max on the football field and then completely different at home. The way that he approaches watching film before he goes and plays the next team, the way that he approaches his recovery, it's all the same mentality. Right? And when you're clear and when you can see this, and then you are able to have a look at the way that you show up as well, right? If we all look at the greats, don't we? We look at the people, we're inspired by them. We think they've done amazing things. Either that or you're a hater because maybe you're not putting in the effort, right? But if you're inspired by people that are the greats, and go pick someone else. I mean, maybe Tom Brady's beat your team too many times to talk about, so you don't like him. Whoever the other version is. Peyton Manning, used to be one of the greats, still is one of the greats, always will be one of the greats. In other sports as well. Think about the scandals in golf with Tiger Woods and other sports, right? These players, the people that we look up to, they aren't just one way in their sport and then a completely different person somewhere else, right? The greats, the true greats. They take a mentality and they adopt it to all different areas of their life, right? It's this idea of an attack mentality that they're going to go and kill whatever they set their eyes on, whatever the target is, whatever the goal is, they're going to go and crush that goal. If you have a mentality that you are just going to focus on X and that is it, and as soon as you walk away from that, you're going to be different, then you are going to let yourself down. And it's not actually more work. I'm not talking about more work. I'm not talking about putting in more hours, although maybe it's required. What I am talking about is the way that you show up, the way that you approach things. Let's say you're in sports, right? Let's say you're a business owner and maybe you're doing triathlons, maybe you're running marathons, something like that. Can you put in a ton of effort into your business and into running marathons? Of course you can, right? Can you try and get a business up and running and, train for your first ever marathon at the same time and put in and achieve great things? I think one of them is going to lack because in the beginning, there's so much momentum that needs to be gained, right? But as a business owner, can you quote unquote have it all? Of course you can, but you've got to have this attack mentality and you've got to start to build and you've got to layer the steps, one on top of the other on top of the other. And as a business owner, often this is talking about team, right? How do you scale beyond yourself? In the beginning, a lot of business owners, maybe not you, but a lot of business owners just start with a certificate on how to do something or some sort of trade or something like that, right? And then they get their certificate. No one ever taught them how to do business. I was talking to a business owner yesterday and he says, yeah, I got this business. And I said, yeah, like when I grew up, I was, went to what they call TAFE here in Australia, which is where you get your certificate on how to be a plumber, right? This is many moons ago. And they teach you a business module when you go there, except it's actually nothing. They don't teach you anything about how to run a business properly. It's completely ineffective, right? Just like a lot of the business courses and so forth. I've had a lot of people come through my programs in the academy over the years and say, man, I learned more in the last 3 weeks than I learned doing a whole marketing degree at university for 3 or 4 years, right? There's on the ground shit in the way that things actually work. That's what I was talking about previously of an outdated system, right? Outdated education. And over the years, we should hopefully be able to see this moving forward. Universities are going to have to shift because otherwise people will stop going to university. There's too much access to information out there today, non-certified, courses and development to make people exceptional, right? But the way that you show up, the way that you become the best version of you, the way that you excel means that you need to break up with the idea that it's bad to exceed what average people do. You need to break up with the idea in your head that you can't have the things that you want. You need to break up with the idea that it's not okay to put yourself first. You need to put yourself first. You should put yourself first. If you're a parent and you don't put yourself first and you put your kids first, then you're not really giving your kids the best of you, because you're putting them first, in my opinion. And unless, think about it. Can you build a skyscraper on a pile of sand on the beach? Well, you can, but if that foundation is not rock solid, then it'll fall over. If your kids see you just continue not to give to yourself, not to look after yourself, then that's the way that you train them to behave as well, right? And so it is very important that you do recognize you have to put yourself first. You have to strip back the barriers and the limitations. You can't just walk into the gym and be one way, right? If you want to succeed in all areas of your life, then you need an attack mentality that you're going to apply across all areas of your life. But as I said, you can't just have this by being stuck in these societal norms, right? Talking about having massive levels of success, entrepreneurs who don't want to share about, the amount of money that they made or how much money they're spending on marketing or these sorts of things. In the wrong circles, these conversations are taboo. You don't have these conversations. We don't talk about money, right? We don't talk about this. And, tall poppies, obviously, in Australia, New Zealand, do a great job of that as a society. If people start getting good, cut them down. It is in other countries as well. Just in different forms, I guess. But if you look at the way that society is, and if you look at the beliefs and the entanglement and the entrapment that people have, that people really want to rise up and be the best, they have to just cut off from these average limitations and stop just thinking, well, I need to hold on to this belief. There'll be so many freaking beliefs that you're holding on to. So many things. Oh, you can't do this because of this. My parents said this when I was 6. The school teacher never taught me that, right? You can't say how successful you're going to be because of this, this, and this. When you get yourself into an environment of killers, when you put yourself around other people that are succeeding at the highest level, right? Like we do in AS Academy with the clients there, we have honest conversations about what's happening, right? Let's say you made, let's say you did $1 million last year and you profited $300,000, and now you're trying to figure out what the hell you should be doing with your tax. If you have a low-level accountant, they'll tell you to go pay tax on all of that, and then you end up taking maybe $100,000 of that, depending on where you live, and then you send that off to the government, right? So you're left with $200,000. If you go to the right accountant, then they'll be able to tell you, okay, let's invest this into other assets to be able to grow instead of sending $100,000 to the government. There's ways that we're able to work with this amount of money and be able to make sure that you don't pay that much tax. Maybe you don't pay any tax at all, but you still build your assets and you continue to build your company as you move forward. You have to be able to get the right information for where you're at the time, okay? You have to be able to be surrounded by people, have a network of people around you that are, this is probably a really good point, okay? You don't, like the feelings that you have, let's say in that example, between you and your accountant, right? Let's say you've got an outdated accountant, you've been paying way too much tax for too many years, but you like him. Oh, he's a really good guy. Well, if he's not allowing you to get to the greatest level, if you learn some information that he should have been teaching you for the past 5 years, then maybe that is not the right person. For sure, that's not the right person. Okay, you probably want to have a conversation with them about that and say, why haven't you been giving this information to me? Let's say you do those numbers that I just talked about over 5 years. You've just sent $500,000 to the government that you'll never get back because you've been playing low-level game, okay? This is why it's important that you get yourself in an environment that supports this attack mentality, the ability to, I'm not talking about breaking the law. Nothing here that I'm talking about is about breaking the law, but it's about knowing and understanding the lay of the land and knowing the beliefs, the activities, the actions that need to happen. The best of the best do things in one way. Everyone else does things another way. And there is a parallel world right now running alongside of you of people doing things the right way. If you're believing bullshit, if you don't have that attack mentality and you don't embrace it and you don't bring it to all the areas of your life, You know, the way that you show up as a parent, the way that you show up at home with your partner, the way that you run your business, the way that you approach your health and fitness, right? I'm not saying you need to have goals in all of these areas if those things aren't important to you, but you can. And I can tell you when you add, health and fitness, for example, into the mix, you will be a lot more productive. And you'll, on a daily basis, right? On a daily basis, you'll be hitting these things. You'll be reminding yourself when you go to the gym in the morning, I'm a fucking killer, right? I pushed hard, I'm a killer. And then you get to the office or wherever you work with your team, and then you show up. And if you don't bring that same sort of mentality to your team, then how do you think they're going to operate? They will only operate from your leadership. So let's say maybe you do start to make this transition and you start to show up in a different way. What happens then? Maybe some of the people at your team don't like it. He's asking for more, he's more demanding now. So what? Do you want to be one of the greats? Or do you want to put up with people who are quote unquote nice? Do you want to continue to suffer because they're not going to get on the same page as you? Right? If you're a great leader, you'll recognize that it's about becoming the best version of yourself. And then, I think in a lot of aspects, using business as a reflection of that. Okay, we work so hard, we put in so many hours, we put in so much effort, we put our heart and soul on the line, we make these fucking hard decisions, right? You have to be able to get a return for that. And the return for that needs to be great results, great team, less stress, working less hours, at least doing less of the busy work. If you want to continue to put in, if you don't mind the amount of hours that you work, but you want to get more return on investment from those hours, these are the things that you have to do as a business leader. And of course, there needs to be a high performance culture within your business. And if some people aren't right for it, well, that's bad luck. All right. If they're not up to it, then that's okay. Thank you so much. This is the direction that we're going. I appreciate all the work that you've done. It's been awesome. See you later. And then the new people that you hire, they come into that new culture with a higher standard already because they come in at the standard that it is now instead of the standard that it was. Let's say you were going to go and do this throughout your organization and you were going to adopt this. Let's say you decided, what Andrew's talking about here, the way that I show up in the gym, I'm going to start to bring that across to the business. So then you raise the standards, right? Maybe you go get some education. You recognize the areas that you've been slacking. You raise the bar, you raise the standard, you bring it up. And then some people are like, this is like different. Why is this different? There's more intensity here now. I promise you there are people out there that love intensity. If your team sucks, if they're dragging ass, it's probably because you're a bad leader and you haven't had a vision for them of the direction that you need to go. Either that, or you continue to put up with this feeling of discomfort. I don't want to talk to John about it. He's been here 11 years. He's been doing a good job. He's been a good employee. He's been loyal, except your company should be twice as far ahead as what it is, right? Project that out 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Go back to what I said at the beginning of this podcast, right? You'll be dissatisfied. You'll be pissed off. You'll start to hate yourself. You'll hate them as well. You'll be resentful. And this underlying resentment will go out to your team and out to your people and out to your family because you don't deal with it inside. That you are a fucking killer. You know that you are. You know that you want to bring this attack mentality into all areas of your life. And maybe the people around you have been running you, making decisions for you. You haven't had the courage to be able to step in and say, not good enough, I'm not putting up with that anymore. But I promise you when you do, coming back to the team example, will you get a turnover in staff? Well, if they're not going to grow with you, of course you will. You'll probably have a big culture turnover. The next 12 months could be a little bit difficult because you've had people for a long time. Now you've raised the standard, but you know where you'll be in 12 months? With a business that you love, without all those shitty little frustrations of underperforming staff, with a vision that inspires you, with a mission that makes you feel amazing. Gets easier to get out of bed every day. You don't have to work all the hours. You don't have to pick up after people by doing these things. What you have to do to be able to achieve this for yourself is you have to stop putting up with low-level, average decisions by average people. You are strong inside, you are certain inside, but you've got to have the courage to be able to say, not good enough, and it starts with you. have I been coaching businesses the last decade? Yeah, I think this is like year 11. How do businesses grow? Well, there's a strategy side of it, but then there's also you. The work that I've been doing over the last decade, the work that I talk about here as well. This is personal leadership shit. So many of you guys would know exactly what you need to be doing, but you're not doing it. And it comes back to a lot of these things, right? When you get yourself in an environment with people who think on this level and operate on this level, then you can take a big deep breath out and feel normal again. But when you're the odd man out, when you're the one that's thinking big and everyone else around you is thinking small, then you just start to believe they're bullshit, and over time you hate yourself because deep down you know that there's something there, but you just haven't raised your hand to be able to go and get it. That's all I've got for you here today in this podcast. The right people are going to take a ton from this. And so if this has been really good, share it out. If you're seeing this on social media as well, please, take a screen capture of it, tag me. You can see the Instagram handle right here on the screen. It's the Andrew Sparks on Instagram if you want to go and add me there if you're listening to this audio. I appreciate your attention here. We're going to continue to bring high value content to be able to get you to recognize you are the leader. You are in control of yourself. Everything that's not working right now comes back to you. Everything that is working comes back to you. We just need to raise the standards of the things that haven't been working. Have those hard conversations, make those hard decisions, make those hard calls. But when you start to, all the stress, anxiety, frustration that is in your life that doesn't belong, that will start to disappear. Can't wait to catch you guys next week. We'll see you then.